Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. Today I thought we'd go over what it is that I actually do for work, working in the legal sector, and what sort of tips I would give to someone when it comes to considering whether or not a career in law is right for them. So let's start with what it is that I actually do. So I work as a paralegal in a personal injury firm. I work in an area of law which is called litigation, which is essentially where two different persons have something that they're arguing over as to who is to blame for something. And this is an issue because if they can't come to an agreement, then the case may have to go to court where a judge would decide who is right or wrong in the situation. In a personal injury firm, a case starts when, say, a client has an accident, and then they will call in. The solicitor will then ask the client how they had the accident and create a detailed witness statement, which would be the client's version of events. The solicitor will also send a letter to the defendant, who is essentially the other side. So it might be the case that if you had an accident while you're at work, the defendant will be your employer because they're the ones to blame. If you had an accident where you were hit by a car, the defendant would be the car driver because they're at fault for your accident. Now, the insurance company for the defendant, that's the employer or the car driver that hit you, will investigate the case to see if the defendant was actually at fault here. Now, the defendant's insurer will investigate the case and either reply to the solicitor stating either we don't think we're at fault here, or they might say that we agree that this was our fault, we admit to it. In this case, the solicitor for the claimant, which is the party that got injured, will send the claimant to be examined by a medical expert, which is essentially a doctor with lots of years of experience. The expert will then tell us whether or not the injuries that happened to the claimant were actually caused by the accident, or maybe they had the same injuries in the past. They will also tell us how long it would take for the injuries to heal up. The solicitor will then negotiate a settlement, i.e. the defendant and the claimant solicitor will agree for a sum of money that should go to the claimant, which is also called compensation, and this would avoid the case from escalating further and going to trial. Now, if we go back a little, in the instance that the other side's insurer decides that they're not responsible for the accident, if the solicitor thinks that the case is strong, they will serve the defendant. What this basically means is that the solicitor thinks that the case is strong and that they're prepared to go to trial over it. Both sides will then give each other all the evidence that they have, so they can both decide on how strong the case is and whether or not they think that they will win at trial. If both sides can't come to an agreement after exchanging the evidence, the case then goes to trial, where a judge decides who is at fault here. So I hope that gives you an understanding of what happens in a personal injury litigation case. I thought we'd go through 5 things that I think are worth considering when deciding whether or not you want a career in law. The first thing I would say is you would do quite well in law if you are a detail-orientated person. So if you're someone who is good at spotting errors in things, if you can read large texts and spot grammar mistakes, then I think you would do quite well. Number 2, I would say, is that it helps if you have the ability to handle stress. Generally speaking, the legal sector is a place where there can be a lot of stress. You may have a high workload, lots of court deadlines that you have to meet. Some tasks can be quite confusing and take a lot longer than others to do. And with the law being all about following rules and regulations, it's quite easy to miss certain things and have small mistakes turn into big errors. So I think it helps to be someone that takes their work seriously, but doesn't let it get to them personally so that they end up burning out. My third tip would be that it helps if you're able to take criticism. I found that for the first few months that I was at the job, I was making big mistakes in my work. I was messing up spelling errors, making grammar mistakes, just missing the point of a lot of assignments. And I don't think I would have ever improved if I didn't take feedback on board and change what I was doing to make sure that I wasn't making the same mistakes again and again. I think a lot of us who are law graduates may be people who've done very well at school and then even at university. So when we come into the world of work, we're often quite shocked to find that the skills that we have already don't really help much in the workplace, and it requires a whole different skill set to master. My fourth tip is that it can really help if you are someone that is willing to persevere. The average age for someone qualifying as a solicitor is now just over 30, which means that qualifying as a solicitor and having a good career is somewhat of a long game. Even after you have qualified, I think you still find that you have a lot to learn. So it's a career where things do get easier the more you learn. But it requires lifelong learning as things are always changing. I think my fifth and last tip, and this can apply to I think almost all careers, is that you have to have the ability to look after yourself. I think when you're at university or you're just starting your career, it can seem like that it's the biggest thing in your life and that it's something that you have to get right. But what I've found is the complete opposite. I think it really helps if you have a good balanced life around you with things like family, friends, activities that you can do, because whatever you have going on in your life will also affect your work life. Like I said before, the legal sector can be a stressful environment. It can make a whole lot of difference if you have a supportive environment around you outside of work and good activities that you can do to take the stress out of things. There are so many different law firms and so many different employers, all coming with their own possibilities, different work cultures, different environments. So it definitely helps to keep your house in order outside of the workplace as well. Okay, I hope you enjoyed all those tips and I hope you learned something from it. If you have any questions, you can put it in the comments below, and I'll see you for the next video.